we are coming for throats on this one. We're exposing 4 lies that are being told by the typical business buying gurus that you see online that are talking about how easy it is to buy a business and, you know, what you can do. And today we're just exposing the reality of it. It's actually not as easy as it's made out to see or to seem on the internet. Like many things, there's just a lot of stuff that's glossed over and a lot of stuff that's not covered. And so today we're going to cover 4 specific lies that are being told by a lot of these business buying gurus out there that just want to peddle a course or a program or a community of some kind. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I think there's a lot of great people that have good information out there too, but there's also people out there that, you know, make it seem a lot easier than it is. And that might not be the best. You can make your own decision. But lie number 1 that we're exposing is that you can buy any business with 0 money down. Now, the reality is it's conceptually possible to buy a business with 0 money down, but it is very unlikely. And it pretty much only happens when you've already bought a number of businesses or grown a giant business. You're in a position of leverage that actually makes sense and where you could find a very niche situation where this would make sense for someone. Maybe you're buying a distressed business to add on to it or something. But the reality is you really are not going to buy a business for $0 down. I wanted to just talk about some of the actual numbers for a business that I'm buying right now.
I mean, it's just one of those concepts where if you don't have the capital, 0 money down is very misleading. What it usually implies is that you have some sort of leverage or line of, credit that you can pull upon, or essentially no money coming out of your pocket at this moment. And normally people who are doing this type of deal could feasibly, to a degree, pull out a decent chunk of change for that down payment. But they're usually people who don't want to get tied up in stuff and either have a network of investors, they have other assets to leverage. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can technically have 0 money down, but you had to have the money somewhere else to come into it. And Brody, why don't you just list off what your experience with this is? Because my God, it is anything but 0 money.
Oh yeah. So we're in a situation where we are buying a business and we're doing it with an SBA loan. Now there is a 10% equity injection that's required. So the business is a $1.9 million business. That means $190,000 is required in cash down on closing to be able to get the loan. There is a small portion that's seller financed as well, but the majority of it is coming from the SBA loan, about 80% of it. But even though we have someone who is coming in as a capital partner to bring that whole $190,000, we're already 15 grand out of pocket just for the deposit to get the SBA working on this. And it took that money to basically get approved, like get the actual loan approved. And that goes towards a host of different things. There are SBA guarantee fees. There are valuations that the SBA has to get their own third-party valuation on record. That has to come out of that. There are a number of different title searches and flood zone searches and all this different equipment appraisals and all this different stuff that has to happen for you to actually be able to close. So we're 15 grand out of pocket just on that. And to close, there's going to be about another 10 grand, about 9.5, 10 grand, just to finish that deposit on top of the 10% equity injection. On top of that, you got to talk about accounting and legal. We're thousands out of pocket, or going to be thousands out of pocket, most likely, by the time the closing happens, on legal costs to get our operating agreement finished, to get the purchase agreement where it needs to be, any other agreements that have to go into effect. And these all have to be reviewed by the SBA and approved by the SBA for us to close. So we have to do all of them before we close, before we can get the loan. So they're not even expenses that can really come out of the business after it's funded and after it has working capital either. On top of that, you've got CPA fees. We just had to put a deposit down today for a CPA to advise on the tax and corporate structure of the deal to make sure that we're checking our boxes there. And depending on the deal, the size of the deal, sometimes you need to get a quality of earnings statement just to be able to assess whether it's worth what it's being portrayed to be worth. Luckily, the SBA valuation helps a lot with that as well. They give a lot of good detail on that where we can go in and check things there. But these are all costs that, really add up, and zero down is incredibly misleading. I mean, albeit this is maybe a bigger business than some would be purchasing up front, and it's a well set up business. It's got a lot of assets, but it's incredibly misleading that you can just go get an SBA loan and get an investor to put down the down payment and be $0 out of pocket, because that's just not the case.
I mean, you technically are technically when you started this journey, yeah, you had $0 out of pocket, but then you had to pay more money to be $0 out of pocket because the investor is there for 10%. He's not there for the other fees. That's not his job. And you
$0 in pocket is accurate portrayal.
Honestly, yeah. You could make a great video title of "I bought a business" and then just name how much money you had to throw into it. That'd be a great video title. I bought a business for $13,000 all in, and then you can explain why that was just all the other fees. But these are the fees and responsibilities that you as the buyer need to consider, because it is going to be immensely more expensive to not pay for these fees than it is to do that. And you're also getting seller financing, which is what the SBA is requiring for this deal. They need the seller to stay on for a bit. And that actually leads us into our second big lie that people keep hawking on here. Every seller will do seller financing. In fact, they love seller financing. Sellers will always do seller financing. That is just something that sellers they know about, they understand, and they're willing to do.
Not at all true.
No.
Now, that doesn't mean it's not possible. I actually have a friend who sold a business that was a whole roll-up of businesses in the insurance space, and he was really smart about the way he did it. He was able to acquire 20 or so different businesses, mostly with some of them with 100% seller financing, most of them with at least a large element of it. But here's the catch.
We do need to have him on to ask about that story.
We should
it's a good
story
story.
Him again. Yeah, he's awesome. I actually do have a couple of videos with him on the channel if you want to look up Zach Hovelman. Awesome guy, and we'll have him on again soon. But the reason he was able to do this is because, number one, he had already started the business and had acquired a couple of other businesses without using those structures, or at least using smaller versions of seller financing. So he had built kind of a base of a company already and kind of a platform. And then number two, the ones that he was acquiring with seller financing were distressed companies. These were ones where they were basically they were in a bad situation that they needed to get out of. And so the seller financing made sense. If you're buying a business as like a first business and you're not just adding it on to an established one that you've already built or bought, the reality is, you can take on a distressed business if you want, but you better have some capital ready to make sure that it can float itself, because it's not going to be making money. It's probably losing money if it's distressed. So these people were willing to do this for him because they wanted to get out of a bad situation, and it made it so that they could get out of a bad situation and hopefully, still be made whole throughout the process, or at least be made partially whole over time and not be in that situation anymore. On top of that, it made sense for him because he's not going to have all the same costs that they're going to have. He might acquire that business, but he's already got this person, and this person in place. He's consolidating everything. So all of a sudden, if he adds it to his books, to his balance sheet, it's not distressed as an individual asset being added to him. So that's a very particular situation that does not apply to you if you're buying a business for the first time. And those are the types of situations that you usually see seller financing start to make sense. It's not something that typically makes sense for most people.
And I think one more point to add to that is I'll always put the asterisk here. Sometimes seller financing in large chunks can be common with people who have very close relationships with the seller, such as employees. A lot of times employers will say, okay, well, I need this much upfront and then we can do X, Y, and Z, because they're comfortable in the business. There's usually some sort of agreement worked out. And that's another time when you can see that happen. SBA very commonly would like the seller to have a little bit of seller financing in it, it's very common nowadays, actually, with the SBA. They do like to have the seller kind of stay in to a small degree, especially if you're a newer buyer. But when it comes to a lot of these businesses, especially these kind of smaller ones, if they're willing to 100% seller finance and get out from under it, that's usually a red flag. That's usually something, if you're not established and you can't read what's in front of you, odds are they've been told nobody's going to buy this thing, and anything they're going to get, they're just going to take it and run. So, you see these in a lot of businesses.
Major encumbrance on the business of some kind.
Or you're taking on a lawsuit.
Exactly. Like if someone says they're willing to 100% seller finance you a business and they want to do a stock sale, run with both feet. They probably have some insane debt or insane lawsuit or insane thing that the business is getting ready to get slapped with, or some crazy liability that they're not disclosing that they just want to put on someone else. So I mean, otherwise, why would they do it? They're like, if you think about just being in that position, there are maybe some tax advantages to seller financing for someone who's retiring, but also they're taking a huge risk by just putting the business in someone else's hands. If the business is doing well, they're probably not going to do this. So just use some kind of critical thinking on that one. Probably not going to actually happen if the business is doing well. Doesn't mean it's not possible, but it's probably not right for you if you're buying a business for the first time.
And that's why many people turn to these cheap ones. They turn to something quick, something fast, and they can understand conceptually. You got your pool routes, you got your power washing companies, you got your kind of get up and go hustle style, pretty clickable businesses.
We like to call them the too good to be trues.
Yeah, the ones where they're like, oh, you buy this power washing business for $50,000, and oh, he's doing $100,000 a year. Whatever, you're like, oh my God, this is incredible. What an opportunity to be my own boss and make great money. And that's about where the good news stops most of the time.
Yeah, laundromats are another example of this, vending machine routes. There's a lot of these ones that you hear about most often that these business buying gurus online like to mention, like these laundromats, vending machine routes, and everything. There's a reason that you probably don't know many people that are buying these. These are incredibly, I mean, they're not bad businesses. A lot of times they are actually decent businesses, but they're not as easy to run as most people say. They're not without risk. They're not without their issues either. A lot of times in the marketplace, because these are decent businesses and they're very common, they're all over the place. There's a lot of them that are established. They tend to have a lot of buyers flocking to them. So they're very oversaturated, and that means it drives the price up. So the reality of a lot of these, like what we call the too good to be trues, that are the ones that are always getting talked about, are that you're probably going to have to overpay for them, or you're just not going to be able to compete with other buyers. And even if you do, you probably just paid an amount that it's not going to really be able to service its debt very well. It's not going to leave a lot left over for you. It's not going to work out too well.
Why are you going to buy a power washing company where you can just go and start doing it with a power washer? Their book is probably not that great. And look, I'll be honest, I got beef with the laundromat people. I'm on these business sites about as often and as much as my grandma's in Atlantic City at the casino. And let me tell you, she has a room comp almost every weekend down there. So if I can't find more than one laundromat in almost 2.5 years of looking, there's something going on out there. And I want to know where these people are finding these things. And they are always overpriced because they are apparently gold mines. But I don't see myself sinking $1 million for something that's doing about $180,000 a year cash flow. But that was what I saw them being sold for. And guess what? It got sold somehow.
So that's the third one, is a lot of these too good to be true businesses. Like anything in life, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I would look more towards ones that are less commonly talked about. Stuff, just your average everyday stuff that is just not commonly talked about online. You're probably going to do a little bit better finding a business like that. Something boring that just isn't talked about as often. The more niche you can find that has the less eyes, or has less eyes on it, probably the better. And there's going to be less buyers involved, not as much of a market for it, which drives down the price. So the fourth and final lie we're covering is that the silver tsunami of people that are retiring want to sell to young and inexperienced people like you. If you're buying a business for the first time, you might be young, you might be inexperienced. And there's a lot of people online saying, oh, yeah, they would love to sell to someone who's just young and hungry and has no experience. That could not be further from the truth. They just want to sell, but they can smell your inability to get a deal done and to be able to run their business from a mile away. And if you don't know how to talk about it and you're not educated on that, it's just, you're not going to be able to get your foot in the door even.
This is just like when people walk up to you, like you went like with the clipboard in like the random streets where you're just trying to enjoy your life and you're just like, they're like, hey, can we talk to you for a minute? It's like, no, that is how you are to just random business owners that you're walking up to. I don't know you. You have no credentials. I don't even know if you have money or not. And you're asking me all this stuff. No, get away, go away, get out of my business. I mean, that is basically what you are to them if you don't have any real, if you don't go through proper channels and have some checks and balances, as in like, oh, I have lenders, I have all this other stuff. Let me tell you, the thing that they would like to see is experience. The amount of times they got somebody with a business degree or just from a random job coming in saying, I can run your business for you and do it just as good. You're not going to give yourself anything endearing. I mean, there's enough of them that'll, stubborn enough to go down with the ship than sell to the wrong person. And quite frankly, I don't blame them. I'd rather, if I had a bunch of nobody's knocking down my door trying to hardball me on my business that I spent 35 years in just because, they saw a couple YouTube videos. I mean, this is the fourth horseman of the guru grift when it comes to this business stuff. And we have been, believe it, when you have people like us who come to these business owners and either like, we do like help. We do sale. We just help business. We don't even try to buy it half the time. The amount of times that they're getting hardballed by these people and we have to deal with getting over that initial, like, you guys don't look like me, so I'm not going to trust you, when we're just trying to help them get their marketing right or just help them with a little bit of sales stuff. It makes it harder for the people who actually are doing the work. So don't be that guy. Don't be that arrogant person with a business degree who thinks that because of their, whatever, I don't even know what these guys are called anymore, because of their YouTuber of the week grift that they saw, they're going to come in and say, I'm going to take zero money down and take your business to $1 million a year, and I'm going to do cash flow at $350,000. Don't be that guy. You're not that guy.
You're not that guy. So these have just been a few of the lies that we've seen told online. Use discernment for everything that you hear.
Use your head.
A lot of these are like, if you really start to think about them and you start to put yourself kind of in the shoes of someone who would be selling their business, they become obvious. They become, we have a comment from Grant, friend of the show. He says, I'm that guy. Don't be that guy though. Let Grant be that guy. Don't be that guy.
Grant's been in the trenches. Grant can do some crazy stuff with
joking.
Grant
has bought businesses, and he's not that guy.
Grant has turned more businesses around than anything else. So he has a resume behind him to prove that he can do what he says he can.
Which means he can walk into a deal and maybe get some of these better terms. But if you're buying a business for the first time, it's probably not going to be perceived the same way. You're going to have you're going to be met with a lot of skepticism, and it's not as easy to get a deal done as it's made out to be. So use discernment, do your homework, approach it with very low expectations, expect to pay way more than you would think, and get it done way less easy than you would think. And then you might just get a deal done.
If you've listened to our content and you still think that all you need is 10% down, you haven't been listening to our content. We have a lot of subjects on the SBA, and frankly, you can chronologically follow Brody's journey on this dumpster purchase and get a very, very, very clear idea of what the SBA is looking at. And I would say a parting note on approaching business owners, especially those that are in the older generation. Think about it as though imagine you are the child or relative of that person, and how you would feel if you saw somebody talk to them in a way, or what you would hear them talking about, and how you would, as somebody who is close to them, feel about the way that you're approaching that. So I think a lot of times that bravado that gets pushed is a surefire way to sound disrespectful and arrogant and shut down any future possibilities of doing anything with them.
Absolutely. We do this show every Tuesday night right around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Pretty much live coming at you for the last, 3 years now, something like that.
Yeah, 3 years.
So tune in every Tuesday night and let us know what you want us to talk about. If you want us to cover other topics like this, shoot us a message on LinkedIn. You can find us with both of our names as they're shown on the screen, Ryan Santo, MBA, Brody Vincent, MBA. And just let us know what you want us to cover, or if there's a specific deal that you want us to break down, go through the numbers on. We're happy to do it. We talk about business buying and selling and deal making, and we'll see you on the next one.